Hi all, let's have another wonderful aesthetic experience looking at the sacrifices of Alexander Alekhine. Alexander Alekhine was the 4th world chess champion. He is often considered one of the greatest chess players ever. By the age of 22 he was already among the strongest players in the world. During the 1920s he won most of the tournaments in which he played. In 1927 he became the 4th world chess champion by defeating Capablanca, who was widely considered invincible. In this first game I'd like to show you, his opponent is Bogoljubov. Now, Bogo for short played rook takes a5 here, and Alexander continued very strongly. I mean, he's got already a very good position with this octopus knight on d3. In any case, it looks rather awkward. And also this g4 square is under black's control with white's pawns on f4 and h4. Black positionally has been doing fantastically well. There are some other peculiar aspects of this position which Alexander taps into with the following moves, which are absolutely wonderful, that I'm about to show you if you haven't seen these before. Here, after rook takes a5, the knight actually supports b4, and this is a very powerful move indeed. As an alternative, just briefly, I think rook takes a5 is actually okay for black as well, because black does have a lot of positional trump cards in any case, and if black can get that a file by exchanging here, rook a8, the engines really actually favour black quite a lot in this position. And black's got the pass pawn. It's pretty dangerous as it is, but we see instead of the ordinary capture, we see this b4. Now the queen doesn't move here. Perhaps queen a1 as an alternative. Instead, we see rook takes a8, and perhaps Bogo had been expecting queen takes a8. That's a simple and strong reply, but we see instead b takes c3. Now white plays rook takes e8, of course, and you might expect here black to just take the rook, but then isn't knight takes c3, isn't the worst over for white here? Actually, black still has a small advantage, but it's not such a big deal anymore in this position. Maybe with a move like knight f1 later, the rook can see the a file, etc. Challenge, go on the a file on the rampage. No, this wasn't the idea. The brilliant idea here, I wonder if you can spot it in this position if I give you 10 seconds, or you might want to pause the video. So black to play here, what would you play? Okay, the brilliant idea is revealed here of playing c2 to offer a whole rook here. The rook is taken, and after king h7, how does white stop the pawn from queening? These knights are kind of helpless. Although they're near to the pawn, they're actually helpless against the pawn. And that's the funny thing about chess. Sometimes you really need the right pieces, even though they're geographically very close. They can't do anything about that pawn queening. So white plays knight f2 and black queens, and this is really bad for white now. Although at the moment it seems white does have enough bits in theory. If we consider the minor pieces here, 3 minor pieces, and then we factor out the queen is actually against 2 rooks, but the rooks seem quite awkwardly placed. White plays knight f1, and we see now knight e1 attacking that poor rook on g2. Now winning that c4 pawn is attacking along that diagonal, and threatening actually to create a battery along that diagonal with bishop b5. So this f1's the next target, rook b8, and we do see bishop b5. Okay, what does white do here? If knight d2, this is not good because of queen c1, and that's actually a forced mate for white. So white desperately gives up the exchange, so it's not so good materially now, even in theory. Now white desperately tries g4 to try and at least maybe expose white's king potentially. If we can weaken e4 by undermining f5. Alexander plays knight f3 check, extinguishing that bishop at the cost of a pawn, so bishop takes, e takes. G takes f5, just temporary actually, that can be taken as well. Maybe that's okay. But no, actually we see a different move here. Queen e2. And it's just a very awkward position for white. d5 is tried. It's pretty helpless. Just king g8, celebrating the fact that white really can't do much. If he plays rook h3, for example, well, simply knight takes d5. I mean, what is white doing here? So white sits here helplessly. h5, king h7, e4 now is played. You might wonder, well, what about the other knight? Can we move the other knight? Actually, in this position, there is something brilliant here, that black could actually play knight g4 and cut out that f2 square, and we get a similar mechanism as before after rook takes, f takes. How does white, with the two knights here, stop the pawn from queening? Even the king can't help here. So that's not really on either. So white tried e4, knight takes e4, knight takes, queen takes, d6, yep. White's position is pretty desperate. f6, okay, but at least now it seems in theory the rook and knight might do something. Rook d2, but this is extinguished by a familiar mechanism to before, queen e2. Now if the rook flees, then we have queen g2 mate. So the rook takes here, and after f takes, Alexander has neatly transformed this into a simple winning king and pawn ending. After takes, it's actually just a winning king and pawn ending now. Pretty hopeless. So after d5 check here, white resigned. I think the impressive thing about this is the queening of that pawn to start with on c2, how the knights couldn't stop it, and echoed in the variations later. A remarkable continuation, but from a superior position, to be fair. It was pretty bad, even with normal play from black. It would have been pretty bad for white. Now let's visit Baden-Baden in 1925. One of the leading hypermodernists was playing against Alexander Alekhine, and it looks as though white's in progress with a strong minority attack on the queen side after a takes b5. White is technically better here, so black has to generate some counterplay somehow, and the move played by Alexander is really liked by my engines here. My Houdini 4 really likes this next move. I wonder if I expect most of you have seen this move before. Can you guess it if I give you 10 seconds starting from now? Or you might want to pause the video. Okay, Alexander plays rook e3, spectacular looking. So what happens if this is taken? It's actually a mate in 4 here after check, bishop g2, knight takes e3, and white is not in a good position to defend g2 here. The rook is helpless, the queen hasn't got access to d5 or anything. So this is happening, this queen takes g2 is really happening here on the next move virtually, unless white does a desperate sack. So that's not playable. So white tries knight f3, and now a very strong move is played. C takes b5, luring the queen to the b5 square. So okay, this looks as though it might be a sensitive pawn, but the dynamism of the position is quite high now, and the queen is actually attacked with knight c3. Actually, also e2 looks very vulnerable. White now takes on b7, and this leads to a loose piece now, because black simply just takes the queen off, and there's a potentially loose piece here to exploit, as well as this loose e-pawn to take here, which is take a knight e2 takes e2 check. We see king h2, and now, okay, black does seem to have the option of simply taking the rook on c1, and maybe that's okay for black, that position, but it's not spectacularly not absolutely wonderful for black. Black's only got a small technical advantage. Instead, Alexander plays here a much stronger move, actually, and just really like this move, much stronger than that, is to still leave the rook hanging with knight e4. What a jumble of pieces. If you look at the location of these pieces, what an amazing jumble of pieces. Has there ever been such a jumble? But it gets even more amazing pretty soon, because now white plays rook c4, and okay, there's a lot of pieces attacked here, but at least the rook being attacked is sorted out now. But before we go on, if f takes e3 instead of rook c4, knight takes d2, and then this is unpleasant, because if the rook moves, we've got knight takes f3, and that's winning for black. And if knight takes d2, we just take this, and that's brilliant for black. The exchange up there. So white tries this rook c4. We see knight takes f2, protecting the bishop, making sure the rook's not attacked anymore. Bishop g2, and now bishop e6, another forcing move, attacking the rook. The rook goes to c2, trying to evict these knights, but there's now a check here using that g4 square. King h3, knight e5 check from the bishop, king h2. And now rook takes f3, very strong move indeed. After rook takes e2, knight g4 check, king h3. If king g1, this is no good. The knight's covering these two escape squares, so actually rook a1 is very effective here, a forced mate, in fact. If bishop f1, we could just take the rooks are both eyeing f1. So after this check, we see king h3, check again from the bishop, discovered check, king h2, and there's a punchline to all this. After knight takes c2, here, if rook takes c2, black is doing well. Well, the exchange up anyway. So can play something like this and is winning easily. But white played bishop takes f3, and the punchline now is after knight d4. Well, white resigned here before seeing it clearly. He's going to lose more material basically if rook f2 was played. Then just knight takes f3, rook takes, and bishop d5 would be a beautiful finish, where the bishop's actually covering the protection square of the knight. That's actually winning a piece. This final position would be winning a piece. Very, very beautiful stuff, where it's an amazing jumble of pieces, rarely seen on a chessboard during this combination. I think that's quite magical, really. I don't know about you. Let's go to the Netherlands now. Now I'll show you some more clear-cut combinations, which aren't huge, gigantic flights of fantasy. Okay, so this next position is played in the Netherlands 1933. White to play here has a fantastic move available. I'll give you 10 seconds. You might want to pause the video. So starting from now, white to play. Okay. There's an incredibly remarkable move here, and it's actually knight e5. It's quite deep, really. If we had played rook h8 check, this is not really that brilliant for white, although it is quite good. White actually has queen g7 here, and actually can have a small advantage apparently in this continuation. But that's not absolutely crushing like the game continuation. If g6 trying to play rook h8 mate, then queen takes. There's still a similar resource, but I want to show you the resource which is really an amazing one here. It's knight e5. You might think, what on earth does knight e5 do? Well, one point is, if queen takes e5, we just played g6, and now we've got that escape route cut from the king. So after some token checks, well, black will be forced to give up the queen to avoid getting mated, and that's no good. So that's no good to take with the queen, and you might think, well, what's the point in if taking here? The point is here, g6, threatening the mate. If queen takes g6, we've now got queen c4 check without any d5. By playing d takes e, the possibility of d5 has been extinguished as a defense to this check, and in fact the only way to defend this check is to block f7, the escape route of the king, it seems. So this is a forced mate here, unless black wants to give up material to sort of delay things, but it's essentially a forced mate. So it's a wonderful first move here after f5. Who would have thought this move, knight e5? But Alexander Alekhine was capable of finding these moves. It also conveniently stops f7 immediately as well. So it's all to do with that diagonal being blocked, these two rooks being celebrated, that pressure down the h file. A wonderful little combination which you might not have seen before. Now let me show you another little game from Alexander Alekhine. In this position against Vasek in Bogoljubov 1931, bishop d3 had been played, and Vasek played b6. Can you guess what Alexander played here? If I give you 10 seconds, or you might want to pause the video. Okay, the cute little queen takes e6 check was played. Black has had it. After takes, bishop g6 is checkmate. Just the cute little one there. Now, let me show you against Fred Yates. This is a highly celebrated game where white had positionally like a winning game for a long time, and it looks as though black has a resource now which maybe he'd hoping would try and ease the pressure of these two rooks on the 7th rank. Fred Yates played rook f8. If I give you 10 seconds starting from now, I wonder if you can spot the combination. Okay, rook takes g7 is the way to lose the knight. Let's break to the king here a little bit. Now, after rook takes f6, what would you play here? This is the neat point, the very, very neat point. I hope you found this, or you can find it now. White to play. So Alexander's creating situations where the opponent's pieces kind of block out the king's escape routes, and here it's king e5. What does black do here? If he protects the rook, then we have the classic mate with the 1-2 knockout blow. all the rook goes back to the same thing. We've got the checks, the two checks leading to checkmate. So that after this king e5, you know, black resigned. It was fantastic, this game positionally, because of the dark square control, but black had given up that e5 control a long way back in this game. But to celebrate the final combination like this, I mean, it's quite aesthetic. Now let's have a look at the game against Ernst Grunfeld. I think the name is with the Grunfeld defense, against Alexander Alekhine. We'll flip the board. Alexander Alekhine is playing black, and white now played f3, which does subtly weaken this diagonal here. So how would you exploit that if I gave you 10 seconds starting from now? You might want to pause the video. Okay, I hope you can immediately spot rook takes d4 as a good candidate to check out, because it does tap into that diagonal which has been weakened. After f takes, e takes e4. Well, that was played, but if e takes d4, we would have check, king f1. Because if king h1, we've got just knight f2 check, and then knight takes d1 check, so that's free to take that rook with check. So king f1 here, black would have in this variation knight f4 attacking the queen, and here this is pretty bad news actually, because if queen e1, we've got queen c4 check. So it's not actually possible to do this. So white played f takes e4 instead. And now, can you guess what Alexander played? Really, really accurate chess, especially for 1923. So black to play here, what would you play here? 10 seconds. Okay, black played knight f4, so he's attacking the queen. Now, if the queen tries to keep hold of the rook, then actually queen c2 is very good, attacking g2 and d1 here. This is winning for black. After rook takes d4, we take the queen. So e takes f4, and now the point is revealed that actually queen c4 is pretty strong. So the queen has to try and keep protecting the rook, because if queen takes, we have rook takes with check, will be a rook up. So if the queen now tries to well, in fact in the game queen takes c4 was played, but before showing you that, if queen f3, then black can just take actually the knight. That's a point where black is just a piece up. So white played queen takes c4. After rook takes d1 check, queen f1, black now has the killing bishop d4 check, and it'll be mate next move. White resigned here, if takes, we just checkmate. So from a little weakness of the last move, Alexander Alekhine pounced quite dramatically here with rook takes d4. Very accurate moves after that from Alexander. Now let's go back to Odessa 1918, as far back as 1918. Alexander playing white here. Now this is a remarkable position if you can find the first move. Sorry, after rook f8. So black has set this interesting difficulty for white, that if white plays rook takes c7, then actually rook f1 is checkmate. So it seems as though we've got some issues here to address. The loose rook on d6. If we move this back, then queen takes e5, and it's actually okay for black nearly. But Alexander has a fantastic move here, which really seals black's fate. Can you see what it is if I give you 10 seconds starting from now? Okay, the fantastic move is queen d1. So whatever black does, he's in big trouble. The rook is actually protected. That's one requirement. This one was already protected by the bishop, but and it's attacking the bishop as well. So if the queen moves, we can just simply take this and be a piece up. After queen takes rook d5, that'll be sufficient. And if bishop takes, well, we just take the queen. It's a neat little move which sealed black's fate. Just queen d1 here. Seals black's fate. Black tried actually queen a5. Black did play on after queen a5. But now queen takes e2, queen takes e5, and this double attack is addressed with rook d5. One protects the other. If you're on a spot of bother like that with two loose pieces, sometimes they can protect each other, like that, for example. Rook d5, and here black resigned. Now let's go to 1937, Khmeri. Alexander had tucked his queen, quite interestingly, on h2. He tucked his queen on h2, and Samuel Rzewski, the great child prodigy, played rook d2, and there's a wonderful little forcing sequence here after this rook d2. Can you spot it? If I give you 10 seconds starting from now, very, very clear cut. Okay, we might want to pause the video. Yeah, very powerful forcing moves. Rook takes b8 after king takes. Queen takes e5 check, and we have this back row checkmate after rook, after the token blocks. It'll be checkmate. The pawn is enough with the rook here. The king's escape squares have been cut off again, like some of these combinations. Now let's go to 1928 London against Fletcher, and this caught my imagination. It was apparently in a simultaneous display as well. Black had just played bishop a6, and black threatens to be doing very well actually. If say queen b1, then knight g3, and black's doing very well. What is black doing here? If rook f2, knight e7, most of black's problems have been resolved. But no, after this bishop a6, big surprise. Can you guess what Alexander played? If I give you 10 seconds, or you might want to pause the video starting from now. Okay, fantastic move. Queen takes e4. Now, one point is, if the queen's not taken, if bishop takes, then actually much stronger than knight takes f5, believe it or not, is to leave the queen hanging here and just play rook takes f1. And that's similar to the game continuation I'm going to show you anyway. So let's have a look. Taking the queen. Bishop takes e4 check, and we get a seesaw kind of check. Knight g6, king h7. Knight takes f8, picking up a rook there with check, and the knight now goes back. King h7, and now we have knight e5 check again, only one move for black, and now knight f7. With that rook zapped, there's no rook takes f7. This is checkmate. Wonderful little queen sacrifice there. Now let's have a look again at Paul Yates, who's a frequent customer of Alexander Alekhine. Now Yates had won, well, his queen against rook and knight, but these rook and knight is working well together, it seems, in these passed pawns. Black to play and will flip the board. So Alexander Alekhine going up the board, trying to queen. Can you? Okay, now white. It's white's turn. He played king g3 here. Black to play here. Can you guess what black played here? It's quite incisive. I'll give you 10 seconds, or you might want to pause the video again. Okay, black just plays king h5, offering the f6 knight, and now black is threatening things like knight e4 to block the queen. So if the queen goes back, this is just hopeless. Knight e4 check. White would have to give up the queen. So the queen takes on f6, but now threatened mate. So can you guess what black plays in this position? Black to play. Okay, h1, but not queen. It's an under promotion to a knight, so I'm going to have to untick always promote to queen. We're going to choose a knight, and it's checkmate. The rook is stopping, along with the pawn, all the escape squares. Wonderful little thing there. So king h5, crushing final blow in this position. Now let's go to Moscow, 1915, against Nikolai Zubarev. Alexander Alekhine was playing white here, and the knight on g3 doesn't help h2, and black played queen h4 here. It looks as though Alexander might be in a bit of trouble, potentially. But actually, he does have a good position technically. It seems as though h3 might be possible, and if it takes, then hg, and white is doing very well in any case. But he plays a more spectacular move here. I'll show you. He plays rook takes f7 check, and the idea after rook takes f7, can you guess? I give you 10 seconds starting from now in this particular position. Okay, well the idea is not to take here now, because we've got this queen h2 issue, which actually, as it turns out, even in this position is still okay, but no, even better than that, technically at least. Is bishop takes g6, drawing the king out into the crossfire of the bishop and the queen now, which takes the shape of like a light square bishop. After king g5, now just bishop c1 check, and it's going to be pretty bad for black. If rook f4, queen f5, checkmate. If king f6, then check here, and then we're picking up the f7 rook, and then this one, and we're just getting all these pieces here. And in fact, in this position, you know, even allowing queen h2 is no big deal. This is totally winning for white. Now, this next example I'd like to show you is from a blindfold game, believe it or not. Alexander was white. Black just played c5. Can you guess what Alexander played here? A very, very strong move indeed. If I give you 10 seconds starting from now. The player was von Felt, so it was in 1916 this blindfold. Okay, knight f7. Various possibilities for black. If bishop takes f3, we actually just play queen takes e6 here, and we're threatening this smothered mate combination. If this isn't too good for black, the queen is attacked. If bishop f8, we get the smothered mate continuation. Classic. Otherwise, black's going to lose the queen, so that's not a good position to have. After bishop takes f3, so black plays king takes f7, and then there's two crushing moves here, but the more spectacular move is played. Queen takes e6. Also possible was actually knight g5, but queen takes e6. Now if king takes, then it's a mate in one. Knight g5 is checkmate. So the king went to g6, and now here is another clever move. I wonder if you can spot it. It's the most incisive. Well, there's actually a number of winning moves here anyway now, but one of the more incisive ones, to force a mate in 2 actually, as the challenge. Force mate in 2, whatever black does. Can you see? Okay, it's g4. Whatever black does, it's mate next move. Because if bishop e4, then we just have knight h4 checkmate. The pawn is actually covering the h5 square, as well as supporting bishop takes f5. So whatever black does, it's like, for example, well, token move bishop takes f5 is checkmate. So a wonderful little move, knight f7 there, bringing the king out and attacking the queen at the same time. And the queen is a bit helpless here. There's one continuation. I'll just quickly show you. Queen takes e6 here, knight e5. I think white's still doing okay in this position, doing much better. Okay, so now let's go to Paris in 1925 against Edgar Cole, as in the Collet system. He invented the Collet system. Black had just played h takes g6. Can you guess what white plays in this position? Very, very strong move indeed. Crushing move. Crushing. Okay. Queen takes d7. The double pawns don't support king safety in this example. After rook takes, check, king h7. That escape route is being cut by the double pawn here on g6, one of the double pawns. So after rook cc8, how does black actually stop getting mated? Well, in the game apparently he gave up a rook and then resigned with rook d8. What else does black do? If black gives up the queen while it's just a rook down, then we just take. So a neat little finish there with queen takes d7. A bit analogous to a more recent Kasparov combination in the World Championship game. This queen takes d7, quite neat. And my last example that I'd like to show you of fantastic brilliancy from Alexander Alekhine. He's playing black here and he finishes off nicely. He's checked the opponent, and white should have played rook g2, and in fact technically white's doing okay. This is Alekhine, Semyon Alekhine. I think there's names behind the Alekhine opening, I guess. The c3, you know, Sicilian, the Alekhine opening. I think it might be this guy, Semyon Alekhine. But rook g2, and I think black technically okay according to the engines. There's nothing going on. But white unwisely played queen g2, and it's a different story entirely. Can you spot Alekhine's move here if I give you 10 seconds starting from now? Okay, rook e2. This is horrible now. If the queen takes, then we have rook takes h2 and it's checkmate. So white's losing the queen here, it seems. And it's actually a forced mate in 3. It's even worse because after h3 we actually got a forced mate in 3, for example, like this. So that's a pretty disastrous finish for white. Okay, I hope you enjoyed this selection of sacrifices. Some of them more clear cut than others, clearly, but yeah, some flights of fantasy there in the earlier ones. Hope you enjoyed it. Comments or questions on YouTube. Thanks very much.